Alright, welcome to Brawl. We're going to run and clear our dailies with Brawl right now. I don't feel like running an event right now, I'm a little under the weather, want to play some fun. So let's talk about this deck. It is our standard Niv deck, built around Niv-Mizzet, running Jahoda as our companion. We have, what is our stats count? Let's check that while we're here. Oop. We have 40 lands. Going down here, we'll show you 2 of each basic, couple of triumphs, a ton of ways to fetch, we just want to thin out a bit. The world tree for fixing, other notable things, checks and things, go. So, we are running a ton of basically land finding effects here. This is something I've learned, it's more important in a one-on-one game to just make your land drops. Ramp is amazing in Commander because you want to do big things when there's 4 players, because you've got to race your resources against 3 people. So we've got to use slow to the ground, ramp and fixing to just guarantee that we keep going because we have our reload. Aside from that, a few things I've added. I've added OG, the exquisite blade. A white and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, we gain 2 life and scry 2, and whenever we cast a second spell each turn, we exile up to 1 target creature we control and return to the battlefield. Been playing this more in Commander, been very impressed with it. Particularly in a deck like this where we're going to fire off a couple of spells, particularly if we have lots of instants. But also because he can blink himself, and that was something I must have misread in the spoiler season. We've brought back in good old Hostage Taker because I just love this card. So one of the tricks with Hostage Taker I used to play in Standard with Niv is if your opponent doesn't have anything good, you can exile a Niv under the Hostage Taker and then suicide block it or whatever you have to do to get rid of it, or if your opponent removes it, they will give you another Niv reload. We're running Kaito from the set. We had him in before, he's amazing as he always is. They have released the Phyrexia Alchemy set, so we're playing with a few cards from there. We are adding Grunnox the Brood of Carnivore. At the beginning of the end set we put an oil counter on it to 1 creature. Whenever a non-token creature you control or 1 or more oil counters on it dies, conjure X duplicates of it. Those creatures get +X+X and then shuffle them into your library. So I'm on the fence about this, we'll see how he does. Another one which I think is a fun card is the Metamorphic Slime. So this is 1 black and green for a free trample ooze, Phyrexian Ooze. Whenever it dies, conjure a card named Draw Slime into the graveyard, then double their power of the duplicate and the original and shuffle both of them in. So I like how you kill it, it splits in 2, then shuffles back in. I don't know about it getting bigger, which I find weird, but it's good. Aside from that, I don't think we are running any more of the additional cards. Nope, we'll just have a sort of scroll so anyone can see the deck. Yeah, this is what you're running, so let's jump into the games. First match here versus Jahoda. Interesting, we got a lot of fixing here, we can keep it. Jahoda goes first, we'll get the Renegade map rolling. Opponent drops a tap land, so we're not in danger of anything too bad here. Let's get a blue source to drop on the Growth Spiral and keep things moving from there. I intend to drop the Sun Petal Grove here, but I changed my mind due to the fact that we now have 2 of the Cabaretti lands. Well, 2 of the New Capenna lands that mean we got to sacrifice them and get tapped. Right, we actually have full sorted here. We will have all 5 colours on turn 5. Veto is a good answer to anything they might have. Choose to drop a amulet and fake holding anything up. I could drop the mind here, but I want him to be maybe scared about the amulet. So my plan is here, grabbing a black. I'm going to cast Croxer, hold priority, and then use Decisive Denial to fight Jahoda to kill it. So what you'll see here is me trying to figure out the interface with the arena interface when you want to actually do complex triggers. And realizing I have to actually confirm that I've selected the target, which is the only target I can select, because I don't know. But this slows him down. We can't let Jahoda start cascading really, because it just gets away from things. I draw up a Nashiok, We hit a Triumph, just to get that online. Choose to play Wandering Mind. I'm hoping to hit some kind of answer for the Ashok. We hit an Assassin's Trophy. So I decided it's better to just get rid of the Ashok now, because they could bounce permanent, make more Exilers, or potentially even get close to that ultimate. This does let them recast Jahoda, and we don't have an answer for him currently. Third Path Iconoclast is pretty fun. Let's thin out our deck, grab another basic. Choose to get Widespread Thievery rolling. We hit a Justice Strike that can kill the Jahoda no matter how big it gets. Choose to hold up the veto here in case they're a Planeswalker deck, but they start dropping huge creatures like the Alicia into the Prime Speaker. I'm going to counter the Relic here to keep their mana down. They attack in here. I choose to take it. I untap and I decide to drop Niv down for the reload. And then we can cast a Justice Strike, killing Jahoda, which makes them a bit more ample. Our opponent screws up and puts Jahoda into the command zone instead of into the graveyard, so the Alicia trigger doesn't work. They just spend their turn recasting the Jahoda and use Vanifar to sacrifice their Mystic to grab a Valky, pump in their team. We have the Soul Blaze here, so we're not too worried about this. I choose to chump here. I want to keep I don't want to go dangerously low here. Right, so with our first trigger, we need to Allegiance to Ash, exile Alicia so that he can't return all the creatures to his hand on the end step. Then Solar Blaze will kill everything, because what will happen is the Anthem effect from Jahoda will leave, but they will deal damage to themselves based on their pumped power, and then they will die. But first we'll drop the Fire Minds Research to just keep our value engines running. So Solar Blaze removes most of the cards here. We put Niv back in command zone. And then we decide, let's drop the third Path Iconoclast, and then we can use Assemble the Team to make another chump blocker, get a counter, get a treasure, keep it rolling. And both of our cards from New Phyrexia Alchemy are here, so I was thinking about taking them. However, I decide on another answer for Jahoda, so I put the D-Spark into our hand here. Although if I looked, I noticed they can't cast Jahoda yet. Looking at the things, and it's just better to just Niv reload here. We also have Soul Herder, so if they don't have an answer to this Jahoda, we could just go Bazonga nuts here. We draw Rip Apart, so let's get rid of Volo before we start copying creatures. Our opponent is thinking they must have a response, but they don't deploy it. Right, we go to our end step. And we have to discard. Oh, they just concede. Yeah, we've gone too far ahead of that. But a good back and forth. Next match here against Gix Mono Black. Mulligan, and we find one of our toxic creatures, so we're going to keep that. Start with a tap land. And they start pumping out toxic creatures, which is absolutely terrifying. We get another Triumph, so we got to throw down Triumphs here. Plan basically, we've got to just drop stuff and get things down. So I played Back Alley Gardener as a blocker. I know it's Death Touch, but I would prefer to trade here. They missed their land drop suspiciously, but they do have, if I remember correctly, yeah. They do have removal to get rid of it. We go up to 3 Toxic here. Vanishing Verse is an amazing answer here versus pretty much everything they'd want to do. So I choose to play the Kavu and hold up a Vanishing Verse maybe. I actually choose not to because I just want to make sure I hit my land drops here. They've missed theirs. It probably would have been better to hold a Vanishing Verse, but I want to get ahead of them or keep hitting my land drops to keep the pressure off on them. They find their third land, but unfortunately it's a tap land. I'm going to trade for the Toxic creature here because we're already on 4 Toxic, and if they have Proliferate synergies I do not want to be involved. Edgar's a good hit. I decide to deploy the new card from Virtue Alchemy, put a coil counter on him to conjure a copy back in, because I can Vanishing Verse the Pestilent Siphoner here when he tries to draw from the Gix. So now that Gix is on the field, our priority is not letting anything hit us because it will draw them cards. Fortunately, I decide they don't hit a land drop, so looking at what's on the field, I decide it's better to just get a Niv reload here. And that is an amazing hand. So I choose to gate the Slime, just to play the new cards here. End step, I realised I could put counters on creatures I don't control as well. So I thought that would be fun. So I figured to try it with the Bonecaller Cleric. I have no use for that card, I just wanted to see if it would work. Thinking I would kill the card eventually. They play a barrier, pump in their team. They duress us. The only thing they can take is Lightning Helix. They drop another Death Toucher, don't attack. So we have no things here, so I'm going to choose to play Prosper because he is a Death Toucher that also can exile us cards. And we put an all counter on him to get another copy of him into our deck. Our opponent plays a Conjurer that makes us discard our biggest card. I choose Hostage Shaker because I know that Mono Black probably won't have many ways to deal with the artifact. I choose to trade here, and that puts the oil counter back in because the ramp from Prosper here from just doing this, playing cards out of exile, is going to be way more important to us. I drop Edgar, which is another solid answer because, well, we all know how I feel about Edgar. We love Edgar. We get a removal spell here for the Gix, ironically because they played the banner and pumped it. They go for an attack here. I choose to deploy the Welcome on Gix because I want it gone. Anything to slow him down, get another treasure. And we give Uro Flash, which is hilarious and ridiculous. So now I choose to block with Edgar. He transforms back. They use the Gate of Reborn to seek, and we start pumping out our lifelinkers. Our life total was never in danger here. We were actually more scared of the Toxic, but it appears they just had a good start. And I wonder how many mono black Toxic creatures there actually are. We start exiling. We find Decisive Denial now, so we are well on our way here. They replay their Gix. They discard and loot, so I know they don't have much in their hand right now. They use Diabolic Intent to tutor something out of their library. My logic is, whatever they're tutoring has to be a non-creature spell to affect the board in a predominant way. So I choose to trade Prosper here with Gix, because I'm sure whatever they're planning to do probably has something to do with their commander. And we have interaction. We have a flashy Uro, so we'll just flash in Uro on the end step. Get another Vampire. Hit a World Tree, which fixes all of our problems of Mana Forever. And I want to play the Metadross Slime because, you know, it's a new card in the deck. Maybe we get to show it off. I was right, so we're just going to veto the Bolus's Citadel. They choose to Agonizing Remorse to exile our Uro. I choose to let this happen because I'm going to not fight over it. They just concede. Good runs. And we run into another Jahoda. This is a problem with Historic Brawl, is that if you play a deck of a certain level, you will run into the same decks over and over again. I mean, Golos was the one I used to run into all the time when I played Niv. I choose red here because I think an Expressive Iteration will dig us into black mana more efficiently. Fortunately then, we just top deck mana because, you know, we're monsters. I choose to get Soul Herder out here because if we can play Niv, then end turn Soul Herder if they don't do anything, which they don't because they just tap out, we're going to have an insane turn. So I choose to drop Niv here because I think it'll be more impactful to get different things.
Reload!
Sadly we don't hit much hard removal. I choose not to blink here because we're already losing free cards, so I choose to get rid of our new card, unfortunately, our Oracle, and I believe the Growth Spiral, yes. Just because a Knight of Autumn with a Soul Herder is going to be insane. Problem is, Jahoda will probably have to live here. So first things first, let's cut Express Iteration. 3 lands, which is insane, so let's put the World Tree in hand for later, and let's play the Shipping March first. Ultimately, I decide I need to try and screw over their mana, so I go for an Assassin's Trophy on Jahoda. That slows them down. They get a land. I choose to Vanishing Verse their commander. They Assassin's Trophy Niv back in return. Let's just get another land out of our deck so we can finally have all colours now without the aid of this Cold Heart. We have a 2/2. I attack in because if they want to trade for the Paradise Druid and lose another mana, I'm totally okay with it. Fortunately, they don't. I think the play for them would have probably been to trade here because Soul Herder is just insane if you don't have a way to deal with it. I'm looking at my choices here and realize that probably the best thing I could do is just Kaito, gain some advantage, and use the Night of Autumn here, destroy the chromatic thing to slow them down. Kaito, lock down Jahoda so it can't attack in. Then blink the Night of Autumn to put some counters on it so we have a big board to block with. Clarion's a bit awkward here because everything's going to be huge. They Ramos into Rishkar, which is quite problematic. Unfortunately, we can Night of Autumn kill that if we have to. I decide now to play Niv, reload, see if we can find more removal. If I find command, which would be good here, I choose to drop down Chevelle because he's going to be a Death Touch blocker. Choose then to tap Jahoda so it can't attack. Ultimately, pass the turn. Let's blink the Night of Autumn again, and let's destroy the Ramos. Opponent drops Elishnorn and the Mother of Machines, which is a huge problem for us, and they find Skrell the Defectomite. He swings in here with Rishkar, so I'm going to trade with my Death Touch 1/1 here. I think cutting off more mana from them. I draw a card with Kaito. I Forward Erasure here. Basically, Niv won't do anything here. I take away Golos because I think a double fetch trigger will be insane with them ramping again. Just trying to resource deny them if I can. And yes, I have to use the Hydroid here because it's on cast, not on ETB. We find a few good things here. Fortunately, I choose just to blink here because it will pump the Soul Herder and make it bigger. Discard a Triome and the Renegade map. Renee, the Angel of Rebirth, is going to be a bit of an issue here because they are going to have potentially, yep, they find Shalai, so now they have Hexproof. And this I think is where our opponent throws the game, because they get so centered on killing this Kaito that they sacrifice the Elishnorn even though it's shutting down all of my deck. So ultimately I decide I am 100% going to kill Elishnorn, but I'm going to keep Kaito around because whatever crazy plan they have thinking that Kaito has to die for them to win the game, I'm going to let them indulge. They prioritize blocks to leave our Hydroid Crisis alive, which is fine with me. Return Niv to the command zone. I choose not to because I have the Kolaghan's command in hand to return Niv to my hand. Again, our opponent is just passing on things here, so I use Widespread Thievery to dig. I'm looking for another hard answer here because we now have to kill the Shalai before we can board wipe. Fortunately, we just find ramp and things, so I just take out a land here. I choose to discard, I can't make them discard or destroy an artifact here, which would be great. So I choose to reanimate Niv and do 2 damage to the only viable target. We return Niv to our hand and hit Shalai for 2. Our opponent chooses here, which is interesting, to protect from this 2 damage. I have no idea why. In hindsight, knowing Renee is on the battlefield, I think our opponent thought that that worked for every creature. Fortunately, it didn't work for Elishnorn, because now we start to dig with Niv to find answers. Find a that's a good edict we can use to evacuate stuff. Choose to leave our mana up here and make a colorless drone, so if they do attack in, we're going to have at least some answers. Fortunately, I kind of don't know what I want to do here, so we're going to let it go and blink Niv again. We just got to keep digging and digging and digging for answers. And here's when we find a removal spell, and now that our opponent is pretty much tapped out, I'm going to use it in the end step to get rid of the hexproof on all their creatures. And give flash to our hostage taker. Now we have to discard 6 cards, which is pretty insane. It's unfortunate I discarded the OG. It would have been cool to show him off, but fortunately for us, it's way more impactful to just, ooh, that's scary. So they find a Tibalt and a Halala. They finally recognize the danger of our Soul Herder and minus the Tibalt to kill it. Our opponent then chooses not to cast it for some reason. I'm guessing there's no real reason here. They put 1/1 counters onto Renee, the Angel of Rebirth. And this time they finally go for us here. So, ultimately I choose 100% I will kill your Jahoda. Now I don't know what our opponent was playing with the Grell. Like, maybe they thought it was like Mother of Runes where they could protect it, but they really were holding it back, probably waiting for us to use removal. So we put Niv back in the command zone. Jahoda goes back to their hand here. We draw a land, so what we get to do now is Kaito plus, so that the reach creature of Halal and Helena can't block. Then we can go into combat, where we can use Hydroid Krasis to kill Tibalt. The drone can hit our opponent and get a double Kaito activation here. So we bounce the drone back to our hand, drain our opponent, gain 2 life. So we're still in it. Then we can Solar Blaze, make a treasure. We could cast a land, but we don't want to cast a land. Everything opponent controls dies, but it's going to go back to their hand. We'll make another drone here for blockers. We're going to get Croxer onto the field here. And we have Drown in the Lock here to counter their Jahoda again when they try to cast it. So we've pretty much priced their Jahoda out of existence here if we counter it with the Drown in the Lock. We drop an Edgar to get more pressure on the board. The commanders go back. Our opponent cast Lavinia, Shield of Seagate, clearly pretending to give out. So we use now Drown in the Lock to counter here, and it's really weird because they know they're going to have to discard the Croxer, but they keep it going. And there's our results. All wins. Very solid.